29th, 2015. I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. I'm recording this at 8:27 in the morning Mountain Time, 10:30 here in Philadelphia. I hope you're well. We got in late last night. We're getting ready to play the Sixers. Time to dig in right away, do pins around the world, then we'll do our NBA 5. Ton of games to talk about and look at that along the way as well as we do the NBA 5 and then dig into the Jazz. Sorry, I got an email there that jumped in. All right, I've got to give a special one today because I met this guy last night. Dan Hilton is our pin across America, lifelong Jazz fan, grew up watching the team in the 90s, never realized how spoiled I was with Stockton Malone and the Clan celebrate their success during my growing up years. I even took my wife to 2 Jazz games on our first 3 dates. I've been living out of state for 6 years. I've watched the Jazz as often as I can. I was already in the league past the last 3. My wife thinks I'm a bit crazy. I've been fortunate to attend at least 1 game each of the past few seasons when I'm in town to visit family. Now living in Clawson, Michigan, just outside of Detroit, training to do head and neck surgery. Locked On Sports has been a great resource. Helped me unwind on the drive each night after long nights at the hospital. I love the Jazz and will be there opening night at the Palace. In fact, he was. I got to meet Dan. He's up on my Instagram. My Jazz, Locked On Sports Jazz fans, or Locked On Jazz fans of the night. So that is your pin across the world. Let's jump right in. There's just so much stuff today. I'm going to take there were 14 NBA games. There's not really enough time to digest, and we played, so I've watched a few moments of a few of them since then, but I have not dug. I did not go back and watch a lot of video. There's some things I may go back and try to watch here today, so you might have a little bit more tomorrow. But in the meantime, let me just run through my quick reactions that I had from various box score lines or things that I noticed this morning while reviewing what took place in the 14 games around the NBA. Obviously, New Orleans, crippled by injuries, became the big story by the end of training camp. Still is. They've looked dreadful their first 2 nights. You know, they're not right, unquestionably. They're not that unhealthy either, frankly. Drew Holiday played last night, the limited amount he's allowed to play. They're short Tyreke Evans, which is considerable and changes who they are, and they're short their centers. I think Ajinka might have played last night. One of them played. But, you know, one of the problems they've got going on is they're not defending at all, and they're in 2 games, and their offense isn't particularly good either. But some of that you can say to Tyreke, but you would think that New Orleans, they allowed 43 points in the first quarter last night to they're juiced. You're on the road to start your first 2 games. It's always hard to win someone's home opener. The last night, that did not prove to be the case in the NBA. Yeah, but Ajinka played 7 minutes last night. Kendrick Perkins played 9. So they're missing Ashik. They're missing the Stretch and Babbitt. They're missing Tyreke Evans. They're certainly shorthanded. I don't mean to make it sound otherwise, but boy, they're poor right now along the way. New York, Portland, Miami, Dallas, and Minnesota. 5 teams had mammoth offensive nights last night. New York, Portland, Miami, Dallas, and Minnesota. We'll keep an eye and see if any of that's real. We've analyzed the East top to bottom over and over. You know what? If John Wall is an MVP candidate, we all missed. 22 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, 5 blocks for the point guard last night against what's supposed to be a pretty good backcourt, particularly defensively, in Orlando. Aaron Gordon, by the way, 12.7 rebounds, 17 minutes. I like the bench in Orlando. By the way, I'll just mention every time Aaron Gordon has a good game since I had such a man crush on him during the draft. Stunners across the NBA. Denver beats Houston by 20 in Houston. I love Danilo Gallinari. He had a big night. Cleveland beats Memphis by 30 in Memphis. Dallas beats Phoenix by 16 in Phoenix. It wasn't that close. Jeff only played Markieff Morris 11 minutes and P.J. Tucker 9. Portland dismantles New Orleans. Here's the message. And this is what, actually, I was sitting on the bus yesterday talking to Dennis Lindsay about this. I've talked to numerous people around the league about this. The bottom of the league is much better than it's been. The difference. It's still a star-driven league. So if you have Durant, Westbrook, LeBron, one of those guys, you're on top. You have a huge advantage. But the bottom is getting deeper and better, and particularly this draft is not great, so there's not a huge tank game going on this year. You're going to see Denver's and Dallas and Portland get people every now and then. C.J. McCollum last night had 37. That's that weird Anthony Bennett, Trey Burke, Michael Carter-Williams draft. He turns out to be a player. That's going to be a steal for Portland. DeMarcus Cousins, 8 turnovers last night. Huge line. Everyone will talk about 8 turnovers. His team loses by 5. What's he doing with his team? Karl Anthony Towns had the best night of any rookie last night, 14 and 12. And if Ricky Rubio is right, Minnesota's not terrible. So those are all my quick thoughts about last night around the NBA. Let's dig into the Jazz. I've got a few notes from people that postcast Ron's mic didn't sound right. I'll look into it. That's really weird. We're running straight out of the board into my sound box, into my computer. There's really no way our 2 mics should be at all different unless our engineer screwed up on site, which is never out of the realm of possibilities. But I will go and listen and then see if it happens. It happened earlier this year. I tried a different system, but this was the old school way we've always done it. So I apologize on that, and I'm curious if it's both on YouTube as well as just audio. My file that comes into my computer looked fine. But that's all, I don't have time to preview it. I just have time to look at it. There is, by the way, for those watching live, I believe there's the capability to ask a question. There's the Q&A feature is turned on. From the event page, I don't really know how to do it. Maybe somebody could do it. If somebody wants to, they can. There are no questions in the queue right now, but you're welcome to if you watch the show live. Do that. So the Jazz lose last night. It's a bummer loss because it's the first game of the year. It's a bummer loss because you felt like you might be able to get it. On the other end, truthfully, if you're a 50-win team, it's a bummer loss. We're not a 50-win team. Detroit's a 40-win team, so we should split with Detroit home and away. Now, things never go as they should, but that's probably what we should do. I thought, truthfully, last night, I thought I saw everything that's going to make us a really good team. I thought I saw clamp down defense that was awesome when it needed to be in the fourth quarter, and the Jazz will have to find a way to do that for a longer part of the game. I thought I saw crisp ball movement at times. I thought I saw the triple wing offense that's going to be needed this year. I thought Neto was very good, which is necessary to get some point guard play this year. I thought I saw a ton of open looks. I looked at the numbers last night on the NBA stat. NBA.com stats, they weren't of uncontested versus contested. It wasn't astronomical, and it's never quite clear to me yet on some of these advanced stats what the number you're looking for is. Like, what percentage of shots every night should be the uncontested. But, Rodney Hood goes 0 of 7 from 3 last night. The last 2 were bombs, but prior to that, he's wide open. I mean, he really is. If we went back and, we have an off day today, so maybe tomorrow we can do some of these things and go look at his shots. It's good offense that leads to good looks, and he just doesn't bang them down. Okay, you know what? That happens. I'm not particularly concerned on that. I mean, hey, if Rodney Hood shoots 15% from 3, we got a major problem. But uncontested field goals last night. Rodney Hood's 2 of 8. I mean, he was 2 of 8. He's not going to be 2 of 8 on uncontested field goals. That changes the game, right? Faves was terrific. One of the keys to the season is going to be when teams go small and try to stretch, can Derek abuse them in the post? He did. He was big time last night. Teams shot 38.5% at the rim last night when Rudy Gobert was at the rim and 20% when Derek Favors was at the rim. Oh. I mean, that's Rudy Gobert for you. Detroit was, I'm sending out the tweet as we speak, 5, because I can't wait a second, 5 for 13 at the rim. That's Rudy. It's Gobert land. Those are the things that are going to win us games, and they were all there. And I think if we can go 20, 30, 40 wins, that's really incredible. You just don't do that. Who knows the NBA brilliantly? I don't think he wants his name mentioned. And he's been around basketball his whole life. He gets it. He's really bright. He's an up and comer. And we were talking, it doesn't go on a straight line. It dips and weaves over seasons. So if we go from 25 to 38 to 43, that's 42. That's an incredible ride. If we, frankly, last night's a loss. So it's not, it's a bummer because you're competitive and you want to get every game. And frankly, I thought Detroit played really, really well. I picked them to make the playoffs when the year started. I think they're going to make the playoffs. They're well constructed. They're put together as a unit very well. When Brandon Jennings comes back, so they don't have a catfight in the of colossal performances in the locker room, they get even better. Steve Blake played brilliantly for them last night. Blake was great. Ninth team. His experience last night really was probably the difference in the game. Let's not kid ourselves. Backup point guard play last night. Trey was not good. But that's a tough day too, right? I feel for Trey on this one, guys. He's really. I want to make sure I say this in the right way. The decision that Quinn's made is the right decision. Okay, Neto is better for the starting unit. Trey and Alec together, I still have huge questions marks about. But that starting unit with Neto, Trey is not efficient enough to have his possessions be used instead of Gordon or some of those, or Derek or some of those things. And Trey shoots. He needs to shoot. But if you're Trey, all the logic in the world doesn't matter right now. The reality, if you're Trey, is I had the best preseason of probably anybody on the team, or at least close, and I lost my starting job to a guy who shot like 30%. If you're Trey, this one's hard to swallow. That one's probably harder to swallow than the Dante last year, or maybe it's because of the circumstances in that you thought you had your job back and everything like that. It's really hard. So you got to give Trey a little leeway here. That last night wasn't good, but he's back home. Last night was a bad script for Trey, and he wasn't good. He wasn't good defensively. He wasn't good offensively. He missed his only 2 shots. He got back into positions on the floor he should too. There were a bunch of things he didn't do well. Didn't help us last night. That Neto knee injury was terrifying. I'll be interested to see if he's able to play tomorrow. That's one of those things where it kind of looked like maybe the adrenaline of the moment gets him through it, and then we'll see. The Jazz offensive rebounding was non-existent last night. Let's not kid ourselves last year. The Jazz were, I think I've said that like 3 times. I don't know who I think is kidding each other, but maybe I'm kidding myself. The Jazz last year were 15th in the league offensively. They were 15th in the league offensively while not being particularly good at anything other than offensive rebounding. And then the Jazz were number 1 in the NBA in putback percentage. Okay, so this team lives by the offensive glass. Andre Drummond's mammothnesss down low makes some of that offensive rebounding, difficult. Drummond last night had 16 rebounding chances, 13 on the defensive end, and he gobbled them all up. He got it done last night. And they rebounded really, really well. And the Jazz offensive rebounding was non-existent. That's a huge part of the game. So when you start losing a game by 5 points and you start looking through the Jazz and say, hey, wait a second, we only made 2 threes. We only had 4 offensive rebounds. Realize one of the big parts of the Jazz offensive rebounding is Booker. Trevor Booker, you don't think of him necessarily as a great rebounder. He is an elite level offensive rebounder. His energy, his athleticism, his activity, he's an elite level offensive rebounder. His offensive rebounding rate, so that is percentage of rebounds he gets on the offensive glass. So if there's a rebound that's out there, and if all 10 players on the floor hadn't got the same amount of rebounds, everybody would get 10%, right? Right? So defensive rebounding rate is usually considerably higher than that of the offensive rebounding rate. Last year, Trevor Booker's offensive rebounding rate was 10%. He doesn't play enough to lead Drummond led the league in actual offensive rebounds. But if you go to offensive rebounding rate last year, Drummond was the best in the league at 18%. DeAndre Jordan was next at 16%. Cantor was at 14%. Tristan Thompson, Rudy Gobert were at 14%. And Trevor Booker's down at 10. He's top 30 in the league offensive rebounder. But that's off the bench. That's good. Off the bench guys, he's kind of comparable to an Ed Davis or somebody like that, and the Jazz didn't have that last night. Didn't have it all. Leading defensive rebounder league, just while we're on it, 30% is the high numbers. That's DeAndre Jordan, DeMarcus Cousins, and Andre Drummond last year. So last night, and Rudy Gobert's 7th defensive rebounder, 5th offensive rebounder. But when you have the number 3 defensive rebounding percentage guys go guard last night in Drummond, well, your offensive rebounds disappear. It's a tough matchup for us. That's how we win games. And didn't have that available last night. Just didn't have it. But really, the biggest thing to me is all the things that you're going to see that are going to win games for this team were there. The thought for increased pace of play was not there. The Jazz played the slowest pace game of any game in the NBA last night. That was the slowest paced game of any team in the NBA last night, of any of the 14 games. I think it might just be who we are. We don't run often. When we do run, we actually run pretty well. We were 4th in the league last year in transition points per transition, but we don't get out a great deal. So, things to adjust on. Need to run a little bit more. Need to get the offensive glass. Need to get more than 2 threes. I believe Andy Larson tweeted out we had 3 threes in every game all year and then 2 last night. But I'm not trying to harp on him, but I think it's relevant. If Alec Burks is playing, think about it this way for a second. And this gets a little funky. This is maybe not entirely fair way to look at it. But Alec Burks did not take a 3 last night. Okay, the league is taking last year, I don't have it in front of me, but I think about 23% of all shots last year in the league were 3s. And you've got to be around that number. You're really to be successful and not be Memphis, unless you're going to be Memphis. So last night, the Jazz were not at that level. They were at 16%, I believe. 12 of their 75 shots, off the top of my head, comes out pretty clearly to 16%. Now let's play for a second. Alec took 14 of the 75 shots. Okay? So if Alec is going to use 14 of 70, you're down to 60, round number. You're down to 60 shots a night, and Alec's not taking any 3s. Alec didn't take a single 3. So if you're trying here, let me back up a little bit. I'm doing the math. If you're trying to get to at least 20% of your shots being 3s, then you need to have taken about 15 last night, right out of 75. I think that's 1 out of 5. I got that pretty easy. So let's use that. That's a nice round number. The fact is you'd like to be higher. So let's say the Jazz wanted to get 16 3s taken last night. Well, if Alec is using 15 possessions, we're using and 60, and so there's 60 shot attempts left other than Alec. You got 16 of those other 60 shots have to be 3s, which is now 27, 28, 29, 30% of all shots that are not Alec Burks have to be 3s if your shooting guard's not taking 3s. And when you suddenly realize that Favors and Gobert obviously aren't, now it's getting a little limited. Trey really actually has to become a guy who bombs the 3 off the bench and hits at some rate over 35%. All right. I think we don't need to overdo night 1, but that's kind of, there's some, I think all the goods are there. I think the warts are still there. I think it's a 40-win team, and so games like last night are tough, and if you can go get these next 2, that'd be incredible. If you only get one of them, that's probably the reality. As I said, I suspect we're going to be below 500 on December 1st, and then we better make some hay. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Nobody got any questions in on the question and answer aspect. Remember, that's there for you on this format. And I look forward to talking with you tomorrow. Have a good one. I may post a get to know later today, so keep an eye on your podcast feed. See you.